All right, today I am talking with Bobby Casey. Since 2008, Bobby has been the managing director of Global Wealth Protection, which offers offshore tax and residency solutions for digital nomads, location-independent entrepreneurs, and investors. Full disclosure, I recently joined as a paid member of his insiders group, and Bobby and his team have been a great help so far. And then lastly, a legal disclaimer. Please be advised that nothing in this episode is financial, tax, or legal advice. This is for informational or entertainment purposes only. How's it going, Bobby? Good to have you. I'm excited to talk today.
Great. How you doing?
Good. Good. So I just want to just start off. I'm just curious about what is going on in the world right now, because we've got scary ideas about inflation. We've got, people talking about, we've got the Fed talking about, or not the Fed, but Janet Yellen talking about global minimum corporate taxes and people in the street and post-coronavirus from remote work. So what do you see going on in the world right now? And where do you see it going?
I mean, there's tons of craziness for sure, but I think personally, I like to take a more optimistic and opportunistic approach to the whole situation. So for example, and a lot of people don't even know this unless you really dig in and look at the balance sheet. The Fed has been printing $120 billion a month, monetizing debt for the past year, or even a little bit more than a year. And they monetize debt ongoing, but not at that pace. $120 billion a month is $1.4 trillion in a year. If you remember back in 2008, when Obama announced his first bailout of $800 billion, people lost their minds thinking, oh my God, this is going to be crazy. This is nuts. We're going to, paper the planet, with dollars. And that was 800 billion. And over the past 12 months or so, just in regular, normal monetary policy, we've been printing $1.4 trillion. So basically double the amount. And it's not even a news item anymore. It's not even a significant news item. Nobody even knows this. And that doesn't include the bailout package under Trump, which was, what was it, about $2 trillion. And now Biden's got his $2 trillion bailout package plus another $2-point-something trillion infrastructure package. And they're still doing the normal $120 billion a month. So this year alone, let me rewind just for a second. Last year, under the Trump administration, you had almost 30% of the entire money supply was printed in 2020. And I mean, the total money supply, 30% of it was printed in 2020 under the Trump administration. And, a lot of people losing their minds about that. But now you look at what Biden's doing and he's dwarfing it. He's making it, seem like a good starter plan. It's going to be, it's massive. So you can look at this, you can take the Chicken Little sky is falling doomsday approach to it, or you can pay attention. You can say, well, I can either, how do I put this nicely? You know what? You'll figure out how to edit it if you want. Basically, you can take the approach that I'm fucked, or you can take the approach that I'm going to make money with this. So I look at this from an investment standpoint. Money is like water, okay? Money follows the path of least resistance, just like rivers. Rivers are formed because of the path of least resistance. Money's the same way. Money follows the path of least resistance, right? Look at what's happened in the past 12 months. The stock markets in the US anyway, and even in Europe, Japan, China, they're booming. Crypto markets, my God, Bitcoin is up hundreds of percent in the past 12 months. And there's a lot of smaller cryptocurrencies out there that are dwarfing, Bitcoin's return.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And you've got to look should I just sit here and play this Chicken Little doomsday repeat in the back of my head and be scared and freaked out? Or, I don't know, get off your fucking ass and do something about it. Like, make some money out of this thing. Okay. And that's just, that's one component. I don't like the doomsday approach because you know what, Michael, you and I don't get to affect monetary policy, right? And I'm gonna take a stab that anybody listening to your show, they don't get to affect monetary policy. No, nobody at the Fed, nobody at the ECB or the Bank of Japan or Bank of England. None of them are listening to what we have to say about monetary policy, right? I'm just taking a guess. And so nothing we can say or do is going to change the Fed or Bank of England or the ECB's mind on how much money to print, how much debt to monetize in a given year. So we only have, you can basically sit on your thumbs and do nothing, or do something about it, and at least invest to keep yourself even with inflation. Because if you think about inflation actually, what really inflation is, you actually have monetary inflation and price inflation. So it's two different things. And when most people talk about with inflation, they think about price inflation. They think of the cost of a loaf of bread, or the cost of a gallon or a liter of gas, or
right,
how much a car costs. People think about price inflation in that way. But what inflation really is, it's monetary inflation. It's the inflation of the money supply. And monetary inflation leads to price inflation. But there's always a lag. There's always a lag between monetary inflation and price inflation, because that middle piece, that lag in the middle, that's your velocity of money. That's how quickly the money gets out into the marketplace and gets used, gets spent. So I look at it like this. To take a very basic, simple example, imagine you live on a deserted island. Not deserted island, let's say you got an island with exactly 100 people living on that island. That island has limited resources. It's only got so many papayas and bananas and roots to eat, right? It only has so much productive capacity, and you only have 100 people, okay? So to simplify, let's say everyone eats bananas, and let's say everyone on the island got together and decided they're going to use seashells for money.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, thousands of years ago, seashells were one of the previous forms of money, right? So, and let's say there's exactly 100 seashells on the island, and every person has one seashell. So we trade back and forth in seashells. Yeah. And all of a sudden there's a storm, and another 100 seashells washes up on the shore. And now everybody has 200 or 2 seashells each. Yeah. But the productivity or productive capacity of the island never changed. So it didn't get bigger. Nothing changed. We still have 100 people, but we just have double the money. What do you think is going to happen? Everything's going to be twice as expensive, right? Your pile of bananas now is not going to be 1 shell, it's going to be 2, right? And this is the same thing that's really happening around the world, but it just takes a bit of time for that velocity of money to catch up and kind of move its way into the marketplace. But see, right now, I think if you really pay attention to it, we're seeing the price inflation related to the monetary inflation back in 2008, 9, and 10 under the Obama administration and all the money printing that happened back then. Because you can't go to the grocery store or the coffee shop or go out to dinner or go buy a car and conceivably think today's prices are the same as they were 10 years ago, right? I mean, like I recently looked at a Ford pickup truck, like a Ford F-150 pickup truck. Even a nice one, not the top of the line, but a nicely equipped 4-wheel drive F-150 is at least $50,000. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy for a pickup truck, but it is the result of, Is price inflation as the result of monetary inflation.
Yeah,
So
it's
anyway,
funny you bring up
my perception. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's funny you bring up the trucks because I remember seeing Elon Musk's presentation of the Cybertruck, and they
Yeah.
came out with like the prices that they expected, but they weren't going to release until 2021, 2022. I'm like, okay, but a lot has happened between then and now. I'm like, how are they going to guarantee that they're going to keep the same price moving
I think
forward?
it was what 70 grand or 80 grand was supposed to be the
like
price,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and now like if you want a higher end Ford truck, like the Ford Raptor, if you want the Raptor, it's a $100,000 pickup truck.
Yeah.
Like it's wild, right? I mean, if you get it like decked out and stuff, it's about $100 grand for a pickup truck. Yeah, prices have gone up. So anyway, that's my take like on this inflation stuff. And I guess my last piece I'll mention related to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general. I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. I like a lot of different cryptos, and personally, I think cryptocurrency is. We're literally living in the evolution of money right now. If you study the history of money, there's always a period where it transitions from one form of money to another. We're living in that period right now, in that transitional period. I think within 10 years or probably less, it'll be somewhat of a novelty to have a traditional fiat bank account. I think it'll be a little bit strange. It'll still most likely it'll still exist and for government mandated type payments and that sort of thing. Of course, by then for sure most countries will have their own stable coin, their own Fed coin, ECB coin, whatever. They'll have their own centrally controlled cryptocurrency or blockchain currency.
Yeah, I remember China came out recently about that, right?
They've been testing it. They've been testing it for the past year. I mean, they've already been doing it in several big cities. They've run billions and billions of dollars through this system. They're supposed to launch, I think 2022, they're planning to launch across the whole country.
Oh, wow.
I mean, but actually China's been using cryptocurrency payments for a while through their WeChat platform. So WeChat is an app. Are you familiar with WeChat?
Yeah. It's like kind of like the WhatsApp for China, something like that.
It's like everything. It's like the WhatsApp, the PayPal, and the Facebook combined for China. But yeah, you can use crypto payments with WeChat now, and you have been able to, but not with a digital one. I think, I'm not mistaken, I think they're using Stellar Lumens on WeChat, but I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure on that. You'd have to look into that. But I think it's interesting with the cryptocurrency marketplace right now. I think right now we are at a pretty interesting inflection point with cryptocurrency because number one, we've seen pretty rapid adoption of various cryptocurrencies. We got big companies holding it as their treasury cash. We got PayPal, Visa now. Visa and MasterCard both are working on rolling out cryptocurrency payments with their Visa and MasterCard networks.
Right.
You've got Apple Pay is now offering cryptocurrency through their BitPay through Apple Pay on your app. So you can actually buy your Starbucks through Apple Pay now and pay with Litecoin.
Really?
Yeah. It's on your, if you have an Apple phone, it's on your, you have to have a BitPay account and connect BitPay to your Apple, kind of like in Apple Pay, you have to connect your Chase MasterCard or your PayPal or whatever.
Right.
You have to have a BitPay account, and then you connect it to your Apple Pay, and then you can pay for your Starbucks with your Apple Pay Litecoin now.
Gotcha.
I mean, a lot of this stuff, and people still, it's amazing to me that people are still keeping their eyes closed about this. Like people are saying, yeah, but how can you use it? They're just refusing to accept reality. They're just keeping their head in their sand. But we're at this interesting inflection point with cryptocurrency because you've seen some pretty serious mass adoption. You've got several publicly traded cryptocurrency ETFs now. You can trade futures contracts on the CME, Chicago Mercantile Exchange. You can trade Bitcoin futures are traded on the CME now. I mean, there's massive adoption in this asset class. And at the same time, we've got the most massive amount of money printing, like, that's ever been seen. Like, if you look at the money supply, and it's just wild. And so a lot of this money is going into crypto because, I mean, it just makes sense, right? Bitcoin, you have a finite supply. Litecoin, you have a finite supply. Most of your major cryptocurrencies, not all, but most of them, you have a finite supply. Even the ones with an infinite supply, they have a algorithmic planned inflation every year, which is much lower than the, your central bank's monetary inflation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think even Ethereum has a plan, or they're already doing something for deflationary stuff. Like, they're planning to burn a certain amount of it. I don't know what exactly they're trying to do, but
yeah, there's a lot of coins there's a lot of platforms that are burning coins every year.
Yeah.
Or every month even, to actually, limit the supply. Central banks aren't doing that. Obviously, they just want to print more and more because they get to borrow at cheaper rates when they inflate it and pay it back with, less valuable money.
Right.
But it's an interesting inflection point we're at, where you've got, at the same time that we're getting mass adoption of crypto, we're also seeing this massive monetary inflation happening that is driving people into crypto, because people, like some smart people, are saying, holy shit, the Fed can just, swipe a few zeros on a computer screen and increase the monetary supply by 30% in 1 year. I'm going to take my dollars that I'm earning and put it over into Bitcoin, which is basically inflation proof.
Right.
And watch it just grow in value. I mean, it's just people are doing that in mass right now, and that's never really happened since the start of, you look at like the big ICO run up in 2017. There was a lot of FOMO in the crypto space, but there wasn't a lot of fundamental support for cryptocurrency in 2017. It was all FOMO. It was tulip mania, again, in the crypto space. There wasn't that fundamental support like there is now. But now, I mean, you've got some pretty serious fundamental support in crypto, and we've got the money printing that's gotten completely out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. I have the feeling that, people always talk about $1 million Bitcoin. And I have the feeling that if and when that day comes, it won't be because it's worth $1 million as we think of $1 million right now, today in 2021, but because the money supply has been so,
sure, of course, no doubt. But I think you're going to see $1 million Bitcoin a hell of a lot faster than you think. I mean, you've got you've got the Bitcoin halving coming up in 3 more years. It just happened about a year ago, and typically when that happens, you see kind of a washout of higher cost mining farms, and that's what happened this year. Right around the halving, the Bitcoin price kind of grew leading up to the halving. After the halving, it crashed, which it does every time there's been a halving. And Bitcoin prices crash because people are dumping coins or selling off their mining equipment. Because if they're in a higher cost area, they're paying more for power. Once the block reward gets cut in half, they're no longer profitable anymore.
Yeah.
But when that happens, that just makes the lower cost providers even more profitable because there's less competition for the block reward. But every time that happens, you see it goes down and back up. But now we're in a little bit different scenario, because up until really the past several months, we haven't seen a pretty serious level of adoption of the coin. And so when the next halving happens, I think we'll still see some shakeout of higher cost producers, but I think personally I think it's pretty conservative to say you're looking at $500,000 Bitcoin in 3 years. I think it wouldn't be unreasonable to see it at $1 million in 3 years.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
I think it's conservative to say it's going to be $500,000 in 3 years.
Conservative.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's. I mean, it's just supply and demand. I mean, you think about it. If the Fed's going to print, well, this year we're looking at $5 or $6 trillion in fresh money.
Yeah, I'm losing track of all these new projects and stimulus plans and
Right. So you're looking at least $5-6 trillion in new dollars getting printed.
Yeah.
I mean, ECB is doing something similar right now. Bank of Japan always prints. So you look at that, it's just flooding the world with cash. So, and now that crypto has this adoption level, people are like, shit, I'm gonna flip my dollars and put it into Bitcoin ETFs.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know anything about. I mean, I do, but I'm saying, like, a lot of people are thinking, I don't know anything about Bitcoin, but I know I can buy a Bitcoin ETF on NASDAQ.
Right.
I can log into my E-Trade account and buy shares of a Bitcoin ETF.
Yeah, and that kind of begs the question, which I don't really necessarily want to go down this rabbit hole because I want to ask you more about global citizenship and your business and stuff like that. But that kind of begs the question. It's like, well, the government's going to be printing all this money, giving it to people, and then people are going to be leveraging it to something that's not necessarily government friendly. Like, what kind of capital gains taxes are they going to come after because of that, and how are they going to try to keep a handle on everything? It's like, I just don't know how this is going to play out. It's so crazy.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, they're trying to do what they can to regulate and tax cryptocurrency gains. But the bottleneck there is always your fiat exchanges.
Yeah.
Right. The bottleneck is always going to be where you exchange your crypto for dollars, euros, yen, pounds, whatever. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I lose you for a second?
No, I'm here. Maybe
okay. On my side, you went a little. Your video paused for a second.
Oh, okay.
So basically, your bottleneck is always going to be in that fiat to crypto exchange because the central banks have regulatory control over the banks.
Right.
So central banking always has regulatory control over the banks. That's not going to change. What is going to change and what is 100% inevitable is people are going to stop dealing with the banks altogether. Yeah. I mean, literally today, I was paid in Ethereum for some services that I'm doing for a client. I get paid sometimes in various cryptocurrencies. I send out invoices in crypto. Sometimes they pay in crypto. Sometimes they punch in their credit card and pay for the service. Sometimes they wire funds, but sometimes they pay in crypto, and that's growing. And when we kind of get over the hump, so to speak, where we no longer need to buy our car in dollars or euros, or we no longer need to buy our house in dollars or euros, or we no longer need to buy our Starbucks in dollars or euros, then what do we need the banks for? And decentralized finance is completely this is not really a word, but unregulatable.
Right.
I mean, it's self-regulated through the blockchain itself is a self-regulated system. So it can't be regulated. I mean, the only way a government can regulate a crypto, let's jump to that point where we're only buying and selling now in crypto with each other, and we no longer need to exchange for dollars and euros. At this stage, the only way any government can actually regulate that, the only way is if they somehow flip the switch on the internet.
Right.
How do you
Which I
even do
think,
that?
which I think someone at the SEC said it was going to be like that. It would be like trying to shut down the internet, trying to shut down crypto.
I mean, how can you can't shut down the internet?
Yeah,
Like,
it reminds me of the Matrix, you know, where the AI scorches the sky, so there's no solar energy, there's or whatever. I don't remember exactly what it was, but
well, you think of Mr. Smith as all the tax agents. That's what they are, right?
yeah, right. And actually, that brings me to something that I wanted to bring up, because I love your Instagram. I took a look at it, and some great libertarian memes and freedom memes on there. And so I was curious. I wanted to get your perspective on this, because I think you know, your company, Global Wealth Protection, is about, you know, allowing people more freedom, allowing them to kind of protect themselves and enjoy a little bit more of a regulation-free life. So what is freedom to you?
What is freedom to me? That's an interesting question. What is freedom to me? Freedom to me is basically having the ability to control and direct your own life's choices. Now, of course, within the context of government regulations and that sort of thing, of course, there is some piece of that when it relates to freedom, and I think governments definitely impede that freedom to some extent. But it's not only about that; it's also could be, for example, freedom to live and work where you want. For example, let's say you live in Seattle, Washington, and you've got a normal kind of W-2 job, and you've got a mortgage on your house in downtown Seattle. And so that's not necessarily a government created, you know, shackles, so to speak.
Right.
That's self-imposed shackles.
Yeah.
And so you've imposed those shackles upon yourself by, number one, taking a job that requires you to be location dependent, and number two, you've taken on a mortgage that financially shackles you to that specific geography.
Yeah.
Now, I think COVID, and I'm very much, let's say, counter to the traditional thoughts here on COVID. I actually think COVID was a tremendous gift to humanity, and I think it was truly a huge benefit to humanity. A lot of people don't like it. Obviously, some people died from it. We can argue the true the true numbers on how dangerous the virus really was. But I think from a freedom standpoint, what it did is it exposed to people their ability to work remotely, even with traditional jobs. Like I just read, I think it was last week, General Motors announced all of their workforce that don't work on a like a factory line.
Yeah.
All of them, like 30,000 people, are now going to be working remotely. They basically closed all their offices. General Motors, one of the oldest, stodgiest, most traditional companies in the world, and they just sent 30,000 people home to work remotely. And so this is going to be the trend. And so from a freedom standpoint, once you are not geographically bound to your income stream, then you can actually make choices on where you want to spend your time. Maybe you like to go snow skiing in the wintertime, so you go live in somewhere in Idaho or Wyoming or something to go snow skiing in the winter. And then maybe you want to go on the beach all summer and you decide to go live in Mexico for the summertime. And you do your work during the day like you normally do, but you do it from your home office instead of commuting, an hour and a half each way to work. And there's a lot of ripple effects to that.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not changing anything. That's having a normal W-2 job. It just it gives you tremendous freedom by unshackling you from a geography. And I think this kind of started around 2004 with the invention of Skype. because, prior to that, doing international business was kind of expensive. Doing meetings and phone calls and stuff, it got expensive.
Yeah.
And so Skype kind of opened the world up to that. And now we have a lot of technology platforms, like Zoom, the one we're on right now, which make things much easier. Like, okay, there's obviously still some benefit to face-to-face meetings,
Right.
but 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if I were going to go on sales calls to clients, let's say I'm a traveling salesperson and I'm going on sales calls to clients, what am I doing? I'm booking a plane ticket. I'm going to this city for 2 days, this city for 2 days, this city for 3 days. I'm gone from home for 2 weeks. I go back home and, see my family on the weekend every other week, and then I'm back on the road again.
Yeah.
Now, what do? I put on a nice shirt and pajama shorts and I go sit in front of my computer doing video sales presentations.
Right.
That takes the cost out of the system, because if you don't have to pay for thousands of dollars in transportation costs, you can also lower the price of your product. It also improves your quality of life, because maybe you do a couple hours of sales calls in the morning, go have lunch with your kids,
Right.
Go to the park or something,
Right.
go exercise, go for a run. And so technology has unshackled us from location dependence, and that's only rapidly increasing. And I think this existed before COVID, but COVID was the wake-up call that basically forced everyone into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now you got companies like the one we just discussed, General Motors. What happened with General Motors, right? They had to send everybody home because of COVID. They didn't really have much of a choice. Now, all of a sudden, they've got all these thousands of square feet of empty space and people working from home. Productivity is up. Their employees are happier. They saved a ton of money on expenses. And, the executives are sitting around in their board meeting going, shit, we're not bringing these 30,000 people back to work. Let's just, let's close it all down and let them work from home. And all these companies everywhere, what is it? Twitter, Square, they're 100% remote work now. There's a ton of big companies that are 100% remote now, or mostly remote. Yeah.
And it seems to me also kind of an incentive hiring wise too, like why would people want to move,
Right. Well, okay, look at it like this too. Let's say you were living in San Francisco working for, some big software company making $200,000 a year.
Yeah.
But you were living in a house that you could barely afford.
Yeah.
And now you're working remotely and you say, I still want to live in California, but maybe I should move down the coast a little bit and live in a cheaper neighborhood and just do my work remotely. So this is part of the ripple effect, right?
Right.
Because now San Francisco property prices are crashing, just like New York, San Diego, LA, all these big cities, property prices are crashing because people are moving out and they're moving into cheaper places to live. But anyway, this is just like one piece of the freedom I'm talking about.
Yeah.
COVID was a massive gift to people to get, maybe you don't want to travel, but even if I don't want to travel, you know what I definitely don't want to do? I absolutely don't want to commute an hour each way to work.
Yeah.
To go sit in an office and go through a bunch of bullshit, useless meetings and have to deal with people I don't really like.
Yeah.
I still don't want to do that, even if I don't want to go live in Bali half the year. I still don't want to do that stupid commute.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of ripple effects that come out from that. Like, just one pops in my head. Think about before, if you're commuting the hour a day, you're putting 40,000 miles a year on your car. Well, now you're putting 8,000 miles a year on your car.
Yeah.
Well, maybe before you would get a new car every 5 years, but now you only got 40, 50,000 miles on your car after 5 years.
Right.
These are little things, you start to think about, like,
and when you think about also too, I know there's a lot of people, obviously people maybe that float around more in your demographic in terms of your audience and your potential clients. who are trying to get a side hustle started. And if they're not spending time, well, let's say it
Good
is an
point.
hour each way commuting. I mean, an hour each way commuting, that's 2 hours a day. That's 10 hours a week. That really adds up. And if someone else wants to, so, I mean, let's say they don't even want to work on a side hustle. They just want to enjoy more time with their family, but it frees up that time, you know, where it's not just a pain in the ass because it's a pain in the ass, but it's literally opening up that time to allow people to increase their freedom and capital building, you know, opportunities.
Yep. Well, I can tell you right now, I'm sitting in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and there is a major entrepreneurial community down here.
Yeah.
It's massive. It's massive. I'm in one WhatsApp group down here. Just one of the WhatsApp groups I'm in has 250 people in this WhatsApp group for online businesses.
Yeah.
And these people are from all over the world, and they have the ability to work remotely. So from a freedom standpoint, they've unshackled themselves from the geographic bounds of working where they live. They've also, a lot of them are from high tax countries. So they've left high tax countries like Germany or Australia or the UK or France, and they're down here. And they have dramatically reduced, or in some cases eliminated, their tax burden just by leaving their home countries. It's a little bit tricky for Americans, but most other nationalities can actually just leave their home country and minimize or eliminate their income tax burden. Now, of course, we still pay other taxes, right? We still pay VAT, we still pay property tax. Like even this apartment I'm renting here, I pay the rent, but a piece of that goes to the property tax. So you still pay the property tax, you still pay your VAT, you're still consuming, which raises, you know, the economy locally. So you still pay, you know, transportation, all your transportation taxes pretty much everywhere in the world are funded by fuel taxes, or I'm sorry, transportation infrastructure, roads, bridges, all that stuff. It's all funded by fuel taxes. And so if I take a taxi, if I take a bus, if I rent a car, all these things, you know, these all pay for infrastructure. The only thing I'm not paying in Mexico is income tax. And I'm not legally obligated to pay income tax down here because of my situation being down here. Same with all these other people. Like I said, and that's just one group. That's just one of the WhatsApp groups I'm in. I'm in a crypto trading group that has another 200 people in that group. I'm actually doing a presentation. Today's Tuesday, right? I'm doing a presentation on Wednesday to a group about tax and residency solutions for digital nomads. But it gives people the ability, and COVID gave them the motivation to work remotely. The only thing you've got to do is overcome your mostly unrealistic fear of dying of COVID to get on a plane. and you know, I found most of your pretty smart people aren't really scared of that anyway. It's usually your, well, I'll leave it at that. It's mostly your smart. It's mostly your smart people that aren't afraid of it. Let's just leave it like that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I think that flows well into something that I think, you know, maybe someone could take from this talk, which is, you know, when I'm thinking about, you know, the concept of, you know, finding those residency solutions, figuring out those tax solutions, learning how to become a digital nomad, global citizen, whatever it may be. It seems to me that from a business side on your end, there's some complexity and some personalization that you need because people they come from different countries with different laws, different tax burdens that they're dealing with. They've got different types of businesses that they may be running, even if they're location independent. So how do you go about, you know, diagnosing somebody who comes to you looking for help, and what are some of the big things that you think about right off the bat?
Yeah, so it is absolutely personalized. That's why, we built our membership program in such a way that members get the consultation, so we can actually get on the phone and discuss your personal situation.
Yeah.
So you can't, there's no boilerplate blanket response. Like there's a few Facebook groups that talk about this stuff. And, you know, the problem with that and forums and other like chats and stuff online and blogs and stuff like that. The problem with it is it ends up being a black hole of bad information. So let's say, for example, there's a Facebook group talking about like tax planning for digital nomads or something. And somebody poses a question, hey, I'm a UK citizen living in Thailand with an online business. What do you guys recommend? And then somebody answers and says, hey, I've found the best solution for this is to register a Dubai company, and that's the best thing you can do, right?
No.
Well, that sounds nice, except number one, the guy that gave the advice probably has no clue what he's doing. He may be doing the wrong thing himself, but he thinks he's doing the right thing because, you know, confirmation bias. He did it, therefore it must be right, right? And number three, he doesn't understand that other person's personal situation. So it's impossible for this one guy to say, you got to have a Dubai company. It's the best thing in the world. Well, that may be a good answer for that UK person, or it may be completely stupid. Or there could be three other similar options, and one of them is way cheaper than the Dubai option.
Right, right.
Right? Maybe there's three approximately equal solutions they could have, but Dubai is the most expensive one. That this one guy got sold on Dubai as his option, therefore he chose it, therefore it's the best one. And so you get in this confirmation bias, right?
Yeah.
That you've got to be right because it's what you chose, right? And so you run
Except
into
for me,
a lot of that.
everything I choose is always right, but I can understand other people
Precisely,
might fall into that.
exactly,
Yeah.
right. That's an other people problem, right?
Yeah.
That's OPP, right?
Yeah.
Other people's problem. So for me, when I basically talk to new clients for consulting, we need to know, number one, their nationality, where they're born, what citizenship or citizenships. I have a lot of clients that are dual or even three nationalities. But what citizenships do they have? What is their legal residency? What is their tax residency? Where is their company currently registered? Where was it formed? Where do they do their banking? And one of the most important pieces, probably the two most important pieces, are how do you get paid? Actually, technically, how do you receive the money into your account? Like, do you get paid by bank wire? Do you charge credit cards? Do you Stripe? Do you use PayPal? Do you get paid in crypto? Do people hand you cash in a brown paper bag on the street corner? Like, how do you physically, technically get paid? That's critically important. And also your tax residency, where you actually have legal residency. So, and I just went to a dinner last week, one of these meetups, entrepreneur meetups here in Playa del Carmen, and there was a Spanish guy or Italian guy, I forget now. I think it was an Italian guy. There was an Italian guy sitting beside me, and he was arguing with me, saying that, you know, he doesn't have residency anywhere, and it's worked for him for years, and it's the best thing you can do. And I said, well, the problem is it has worked previously, but there's a new directive since 2016 called the Common Reporting Standard. It was a directive proposed by the OECD back in 2016, exactly targeting people who are arbitraging residency to basically not pay tax in higher tax countries.
Right.
There was a big report that came out, and so the OECD passed this directive, and then any country that is signed on to the CRS directive, the banks licensed in those countries are now required by law to in their KYC research on the client, when they're doing their KYC, they have to have the tax residency, the legal residency and tax residency information on the client. And so this guy was an Italian and had no tax home. Now, he's getting away with it for now because he's not opening new bank accounts. He has bank accounts, but what's going to happen to him at some point in the next year or two is the compliance department is going to do their annual KYC report, and he's going to get caught up in that annual KYC updating. And when he can't produce information about his KYC or in his KYC, he can't produce information about his personal residency because he doesn't have one, then the bank's going to close his bank accounts. And so if, reverting back to our previous conversation, if we were already in the crypto stage where we don't need bank accounts, now this is a viable situation, a viable solution. But we're in this transition period where we're transitioning out of fiat into crypto. And I mean, sure, maybe you can get away with no bank accounts now, but it's going to be a difficult life for you.
Right.
It's going to be complicated. So you still need bank accounts and brokerage accounts and financial accounts. And so there's a lot of things to consider. And so I get so many digital nomad types tell me, I don't have residency anywhere. That's why I don't pay any tax. Well, it's not a good long-term solution because either you're not going to be able to grow your business because you're not going to get new accounts, or your existing banks are going to start shutting your accounts down when you get caught up in their KYC updates.
Got it.
I mean, I've had a lot of clients have their accounts closed exactly for this purpose because they can't produce them. A lot of clients, like Hong Kong and Singapore, are notorious for closing your accounts. They'll give you 2 weeks to get your money out. And the tricky thing is, like a lot of people, if you read online, there's a virtual unlimited number of blogs telling you Hong Kong and Singapore are the best places in the world to register your offshore company. Well, I can tell you without any shadow of a doubt, unless you live in Hong Kong and have residency there, Hong Kong is not a good option. Same for Singapore. Unless you live there and have residency there, it's not a good option because without residency, you cannot open an account for your company, okay? You personally. Now, you can have a nominee director who is a resident in Hong Kong, for example, do it on your behalf. But if they find out you're the controlling, if the bank finds out you're the controlling shareholder, the controlling manager of the company, and you're not a Hong Kong resident, they'll shut your account down. Mm. And the problem is, if you got a Hong Kong company with a Hong Kong bank account, let's say HSBC, and HSBC tells you, hey, we're closing your accounts down because you're not a resident. We need to know where to send your money. You've got 2 weeks to give us a new bank to send your money to. Problem is, they're only going to send that money to a bank in that company's name, and you're not going to be able to open an account anywhere else.
Wow.
Because you're not going to be able to open a bank account anywhere else for that Hong Kong. Like maybe there's some odd, obscure offshore bank in the middle of some seas somewhere that'll open an account for your Hong Kong company, and you'll be able to move the money there, maybe, with exorbitant fees. But most likely you're flying to Hong Kong, hiring a lawyer and fighting the lawyer to get them to give you the money to your personal account.
Wow.
I've had a few clients jump through those hoops, and it's not pretty. It's not fun. And it's stressful as fuck. And guess what? That is like a month out of your life where you're dealing with nothing but banking, and your business is going to go.
Right.
Because you're wrapped up in it.
Right.
You're sucked into it. But people still think, because they read a blog that was written 7 years ago, and it made a great sales pitch because the company that wrote that blog is really good at doing Hong Kong companies. And so they're convinced Hong Kong or Singapore is the way to go. So that's why when you have to take an individualistic approach. If you came to me and said, I'm moving to Hong Kong, now we're talking. Hong Kong might be a great option for you. I would also suggest having a backup in case you don't stay in Hong Kong long term.
Yeah.
But that might be a great option for you. So those are the things we look at when we're dealing with individuals. And that's why when you see these posts on these Facebook groups and stuff, somebody says, what should I do? It's very difficult to take the responses as an actual valid response. Because first of all, I'm in some of those Facebook groups. I'm a admin on a couple of them, but I rarely answer those types of questions. I more moderate the bullshit out, but I rarely answer them because people like me who do this professionally, I don't work for free. I'm not going to help you build your structure for free on a Facebook post.
Right.
Number one. And number two, you're not going to want to tell me all the information in a public Facebook forum that I'm going to need to know to make decisions. Are you really going to post your revenue, your profit margins, what type of products you sell, and your websites in a Facebook post to explain to me your whole business? And we're going to do that in a public forum.
Right.
We're not going to do that. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
You're not going to want to expose that. I also don't want to expose you to that.
Right.
I don't want you doing dumb shit either, because that's part of my job, to keep you from doing dumb shit. And so, like, you got to be really cautious on those. If you're on those groups and you're reading that information, you got to take all of it with a grain of salt. And it should never be the answer to your question. It should only give you a jumping off point to ask better questions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
You know, like somebody answers with this Dubai company response. That's the best way to go.
Yeah.
You should never read that and think, cool, that's a great answer. Google search, register Dubai company. Don't go that route. You still need to hire a professional, and you ask them, hey, do you think Dubai is a good option? Because I read this and I can do this and this and this with Dubai. Maybe this is a viable solution for me. What do you think? You still have to go to the professional to get the proper response.
Yeah.
Because you can't trust, you know, the German guy who registered the Dubai company to live in Bali, that he number one, he knows what he's talking about. Number two, maybe he's completely fucked up and wrong. He may be setting himself up for some massive tax bills in 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. So.
No, that's huge. Yeah, and that's exactly what my suspicion was with all that stuff. Because, yeah, and I think that flows into something else, which is.
Let me answer one more. Let me rewind just a little bit. Answer one more question. You asked me what freedom means for me.
Yeah.
Freedom really is the ability to do what you want when you want it, right? And so, from a hedonistic standpoint, that sounds cool, right? I can just, lay on the beach and fuck off all the time.
Right.
But also there is the fulfillment side to that. Like, I would not, it's nice to go lay on the beach for a few days and not do anything. I mean, let's be honest. I was getting a massage on the beach yesterday. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Right. And hanging out at the pool yesterday, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But also, I need that fulfillment to know the work I'm doing is providing some value to humanity. So to have that ability to do things that you align with, your value systems align with, and to be able to do that on your own terms, to me, is true freedom.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Like if I just have some, job, working at a bank because I just so happen to go to school for finance, and, I don't really like the job. I hate wearing a suit every day. I hate the commute and all that, but I do it because it's some sort of duty or obligation. That's the worst kind of slavery you can be in. Right? I mean, it's terrible to hate your life every day. So to be able to do something that aligns with your core values, and to be able to provide that value to humanity, and to be able to do it on your own terms, it is true freedom for me. Now, you did hint on the government side. From my business side, I have a philosophical view aligning with my values, that I believe entrepreneurs and investors are actually the true economic engine of the world. They are the ones that provide human progress, creating new products and services, hiring people, investing in new things. Entrepreneurs and investors are the ones that make life better for everyone else. So my job is to use the tools at my disposal to make sure the entrepreneurs keep as much of that productive capital as possible.
Yeah.
So if I can help you, let's say you make $1 million a year and you're paying $400,000 in tax. If I can help you keep 100,000 of that, or 2 or 3, or even all of it, $400,000 of that, and keep it in your own pocket, my perception is you are a much better allocator of capital than a government who's going to misallocate that capital into God knows what. Because what you're going to do, you've already proven yourself as an entrepreneur to provide at least $1 million of retail value, because people have decided they're going to pay you that much money. So I already know that you have something valuable to offer. You're going to turn around and take that money and reinvest it into better products, services, maybe hiring some people who can then provide for their families and so on and so forth. So for me, my value I provide is to help entrepreneurs keep more of their productive capital to reinvest for the betterment of humanity. In order to do that, we use certain tools in place to, let's say, minimize our government influence. We can't avoid it. I mean, as long as we live, unless we're going to go live in a cabin in the woods in Idaho with solar panels and a well, in a garden, it's going to be hard to completely eliminate that government influence. But right now, if you can even marginally minimize that government influence to your or within your life, then you can basically, it gives you more time, more money to reinvest in productive things. Yeah. And so which I think is what a lot of entrepreneurs, they want to do that. They're that stuff that they're losing in tax, it would otherwise be usually going to investments or building their business, growing their business. Sure. You'd be amazed at how many people argue with me, though, and try to convince me that they like to pay tax and they feel a moral obligation to pay an income tax.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that's all bullshit words, because I'll tell you what it comes down to. Okay. Let's say you make $100,000 a year. Hypothetically, you make $100,000 a year. And let's say hypothetically the income tax rate is an arbitrary 30%, flat tax rate 30%. No. And let's say it's a voluntary tax payment. Let's pretend it's voluntary. So how many people on January 1st are going to go write that $30,000 check to the government out of a moral obligation? Yeah. Right. Nobody's going to do that.
Just the masochists.
Right? Even the masochists won't do it, because once you take that pen out and you put it down to the paper, your brain will not let you write those numbers on the paper. I promise you. I don't care who you are. I don't care.
Or even worse, if you had to do it $100 bill by $100 bill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't care how socially conscious you think you are. When it comes time, if it's a voluntary tax payment on January 1st, you're not going to write that check for $30,000. You're just not going to do it. So why do we do it? Why do we pay that $30,000? The only reason is because we don't have a choice. The reason is we have a fear, right? We have a fear of some negative consequence, some recourse, right? We have a fear that we're going to have our wages garnished, we're going to have our assets seized, we're going to get put in jail. All of these things come with a threat of violence against us. Because if you just refuse and say, fuck off, I'm not going to pay it, at some point, theoretically, there could be an agent knocking on your door with a gun that's either taking you to jail or literally seizing assets out of your house, right? Yeah. And so all of these things are a threat of violence against you. That is no different than the mugger that puts the gun in your back walking down the street. The only difference there is the mugger takes 100%, whereas, you know, the tax office, let's say in this arbitrary case, takes 30%.
Yeah.
But how much better would you feel if the mugger put his gun in your back and says, "Give me 30% of all the money in your wallet"? Are you going to feel better about it because he was kind enough to let you keep 70? No,
Right.
he still put a gun in your back and still stole your money at the threat of violence against you. And so thus it does make it an immoral action.
Yeah.
Now, you know, you can make an argument certain taxes, consumption taxes, property taxes, transportation, like fuel taxes, these things are more consumption taxes. You actually do choose to, you know, every time you pump gas in your car, you're choosing to pay that tax. I mean, there's a little bit of a moral argument here, but you are in fact choosing to put the gas in your car. So by default, you are choosing to pay the fuel tax, right? If you choose to live in this neighborhood or this community or this state, you're by default choosing to pay the property tax associated with that. Just like if you live in a condo building, you're choosing to pay the HOA. You didn't get suckered into paying the HOA in that building. You signed it on the contract when you bought the property, right? So some of those consumption taxes, you could say, are voluntary because you're choosing to pay them based on your choices.
Right.
But an income tax is not voluntary. You don't make a choice for that. It is completely immoral and misallocation of funds also. So, you know, my value I can provide to people, and this is what drives me, is to be able to help entrepreneurs keep as much of that money as possible, you know, in a legal way, so they don't have to pay as much, and they can keep more in their pockets to reinvest in their business and do good things.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, it's you know, I know in libertarian circles there's always the taxation is theft, you know, slogan that gets tossed around, but
Sure, yeah.
I think more and more I see that it's, you know, people realizing it's more like extortion. You know, it's not just theft. Theft is kind of, you know, something that's a little more subdued, whereas it's extorting you out of that.
Extortion
it's
is direct in your face, right?
Right.
I mean, it is a direct personal threat to take your money.
Right.
I could steal your car at night, parked in front of your house, and you were not at risk.
Right.
But if you're sitting in your car in front of your house and I put a gun in your face and tell you to give me the car, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
In both cases, sure, you still lose your car. I still steal it. But the one where there's a threat of violence against you, in my opinion, at least, is morally worse.
Right. I love it. Cool. So I think I'll just round off with a last question here. I want to focus, because I know we can, you know, give advice to people looking to become entrepreneurs and, you know, different demographics that are within, you know, your potential clientele and audience. But for the people that you mostly focus on helping, right? You know, digital nomads, established entrepreneurs, investors. Let
me clarify. Let me clarify one thing on the digital nomad topic. This is a phrase or a label thrown around a lot lately. I particularly only deal with the entrepreneurial side. So digital nomad is pretty much anybody that's location independent. That could be a remote worker.
Yeah.
Could be a freelancer. Could be somebody that just maybe has some affiliate sites. You know, some of these guys, like there's a term I've heard, which I think is kind of funny, called coconut cowboy. So there's some of these guys that, you know, young guys, they make like $1,000 a month and they decide to go live in Thailand, you know, because it's super cheap. And, you know, let's just be honest, the prostitutes are cheap. Okay. So, and they can live a low cost hedonistic lifestyle on $1,000 a month. And they can, those people still fall under that digital nomad banner.
Right.
Because they're location independent and they're working remotely and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I tend to focus more on people that are entrepreneurs and investors that actually have real businesses that are doing real things, and investors who have actual, you know, reasonable amounts of assets. Like I had a call earlier today with a guy, German guy. I won't mention any details, but he runs a huge marketing agency and works remotely. I just saw him down in Mexico last month, and he has a massive crypto portfolio. These are the types of people I work with because they're actually doing things. I don't have anything negatives to say about the remote worker or the freelancer or even the coconut cowboy. People can live their lives however they want, but I can't do much to help them. You know, you're not going to pay me thousands of dollars to help you pay no tax when you don't really pay any anyway, because you don't even make enough to have to pay tax.
Got it.
Right. So I deal with people that are making, you know, good money with sizable assets.
Got it. Cool.
So that is a kind of a subset of the digital nomad category.
Yeah, and I'm glad you cleared that up too, because that's true. And there's, you know, it's also anybody who's location independent could be W-2 or other things like that.
Absolutely, yeah, sure.
And it's kind of funny because I right now myself fit more into the freelancer category, right? And so I came to you guys, you know, just in terms of like understanding travel, understanding how to set things up for the long term. In the case of growth, but it's good to know that that's, you know, your focus. You want to focus, you know, on that particular.
I have a lot of clients that are freelancers or solopreneurs. But it depends. Like, you know, you could be a freelancer making $1,000 a month, or you could be a freelancer making $20,000 a month also, right? So it depends on what you're doing. And you could also be a freelancer who has now grown the business and has a couple of outsourced VAs, and now you're building some assets. So I'm not saying it's not that I have like a minimum money threshold of people I deal with, because I have people making, you know, 5-10 grand a month that I work with to help them. I also have people making $5 and $10 million a month that I work with.
Right.
So it depends on your scale and your needs, because, you know, sometimes people say, okay, I'm a digital nomad. I'm making decent money. You know, I don't really have a big business, but I'm making decent money, but I need to know how to establish my residency, how to establish my business for tax minimization and that sort of thing, because it's also a marginal benefit, right? If you make 100 grand a year and you're currently paying 30,000 in taxes, and you can move to Mexico and pay $0 in tax, well, that's still 30 grand. I mean, 100 grand a year is not huge money, but if you could save 30 grand, it's pretty damn big money to you. If you're making 100 grand,
right?
And if it costs you 5 grand to set everything up, or even if it costs you 15 grand to set everything up and you save 30, that's still a pretty significant marginal benefit.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah, and that leftover capital can be used to leverage into something, you know, for the future, right?
Buy Bitcoin.
Cool. No, that's great. So for those people that you can help the most, since it is so personalized and things change, you know, with in terms of you know, laws and different trends across the world, what like are some like 1 or 2 evergreen tips you can give people that is not likely to change about global citizenship, about diversifying yourself around the world, you know, in the next 10 to 20 years?
Is your audience primarily American?
I would say, you know, I'm not sure. I think a lot of people that are going to watch this are American, but, you know, I have a lot of marketing people that might take a look at this, and there's people from different countries as well.
Well, okay, we'll generalize this then. Number one, if you are location independent entrepreneur, you run your own business, whether it's a solopreneur or you got a team, but you're location independent. One of the best things you can do is go live abroad, whether it is a short-term stint, you want to give it a shot, you know, a month in Thailand or you want to, make it a more long-term thing, give it a shot. That's the first thing I can recommend from a business and a strategy and a tax standpoint. If you make it a more long-term thing, you can save a ridiculous amount of money in taxes. Especially if you're an American, you can save at least your first 150,000. You can earn tax free. And a lot, I hear this all the time. People are like, yeah, but what about my family? And I'm like, well, if you just earned 150,000 tax free, that probably saved you $40,000 or $50,000 a year in tax. I bet you can buy a couple of plane tickets for that money, right? But it's more than that, actually. If you pick a place like, just hypothetically, you pick Playa del Carmen, where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah.
You can come down here and rent a place. You'll probably, it depends on your budget, right? Like, you could rent a pretty nice place, $500-600 a month here. Pretty nice. If you want like something really, really nice, like, two grand gets you a rooftop pool, a beautiful view, a terrace, a gym in your building, that sort of thing. Like $2 grand gets you something really, really damn nice. And so your quality of life improves.
Yeah.
You basically, up to 150 anyway, as an American, you eliminate your tax burden completely. Yeah. The community, at least here, the entrepreneurial community is ridiculous. I seriously could go to an entrepreneurial meetup 7 days a week if I wanted to, every single day.
Yeah.
But some of them, like on Wednesday, I'm going to 2. Actually, I have a lunch meetup and a dinner meetup on Wednesday. The lunch one is a guy's doing a presentation on Facebook ads, running Facebook ads. And then I'm doing a presentation Wednesday night on tax and residency solutions for digital nomads.
Yeah.
But these things happen every single day. But you could save a ton of money on tax. You can live in a great place, nice quality of life, find a good community. Healthcare cost. Kill that stupid, expensive, and useless American health insurance you're overpaying for right now. Get some bare bones travel insurance and then pay out of pocket for any healthcare. I try to get a physical and blood test done every 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I just had it last week. I paid $80 for the physical. The doctor came to my apartment. We did the physical in my apartment, everything, the most thorough physical exam I've ever had. And then the next day, the lab came to my apartment and took all my blood samples and emailed me my test results. I paid $200 for the blood test. If I were in the States, I would probably pay close to that just in my copay to get it done, in addition to what I'm already paying per month on the premium.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like my neighbor in the building I'm staying at, he came down. He's from Atlanta. He came down here just to do dental work. He had a bunch of shit. He had some broken teeth. He's older guy in his 60s, and he had to get in a couple of implants and some crowns. And he said in the States they quoted him $42,000 to do it. Yep, $42,000 for what he's doing, and here he's doing it for $11,000.
Wow.
Yep.
So like a whatever 300. I don't know. I'm bad with percentages.
1/4.
4x he would have paid in the United States.
Yeah, 4x he would have paid in the States basically. And here he gets to come and hang out in a beautiful location on the beach, hang out at the pool every day.
Right.
Have a beer with me every once in a while, and get his dental work done. I'll give you another example. A lot of people, are getting LASIK surgery. They want LASIK for their eyes, right? The average cost for LASIK in the States is what, about $2 grand an eye? Probably around $2 grand an eye. Mm-hmm. You can fly to Lithuania, which by the way has at least 3 generations of technology above what anything in the US has for eye, because most of the technology for eye exams actually, like all your laser surgery technology comes out of Lithuania. So anything
Really?
the US, yeah, anything the US gets is like the 2nd or 3rd generation after what you get. You can go to Lithuania and get your LASIK surgery done for about 200 euros per eye. 200 per eye, 10 times, basically 10 times more expensive in the States, or let's say 8 or 9 times more expensive in the
Wow.
States. And so, like, just on a healthcare expense alone, like, I'm sure, most people, especially in the younger demographic in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, you're not needing a ton of stuff. But I'm 46. I do a physical and my blood work every 6 months just because I want to maintain and stay on top of it. And if I need to up my vitamin D intake or, stuff like that, I want to keep an eye on it. And I do it every 6 months whenever I'm traveling, but I'm always traveling to countries with lower cost healthcare.
Right.
So it's not like it's a financial burden for me to do it. I mean, not that I can't afford health insurance in the U.S., but why would I? Why would I do it?
Right. If you're getting the same quality or better in some cases.
Most cases better.
Yeah.
Most cases better. I had stem cell treatments done in Mexico last year. You can't even do that in the States. Not what I did. It's not even legal. It's not even legal to do what I did in the States.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard a big buzz about that regenerative medicine, and
yeah,
that some countries are offering cheaper prices on that.
It's not even cheaper. You cannot do it in the States.
Yeah.
It's not legal.
There's maybe whatever you did was very specific. I saw something here in California, maybe along those lines, but maybe there's something different that I'm missing out on.
Yeah, I can tell you what it is. In the States, when you do stem cell treatments in the States, they take the stem cells out of your body, usually out of your belly fat. They pull the stem cells out of your body and they re-inject it into whatever your affected joint is, like shoulders, elbows, knees, ankles, hips. But that's the only treatment you can do in the States. They pull the stem cells from your own body and re-inject it into a different part of your body. So the impact is pretty minor. In Mexico, they pull stem cells from the umbilical cords taken from live births because that is a very rich environment for fresh stem cells because, when a baby's born, they're flooded with stem cells. That's how the babies grow.
Right.
And so in Mexico, if you're a woman giving birth, you have the option to donate your umbilical cord after you give birth to the lab, which they then use to pull stem cells from. And so here you can get stem cell treatments for injections into joints, but it's not taking your older stem cells from your body and just putting it into a different part of your body.
Yeah.
You're getting a fresh injection of, let's say, 25 million stem cells into a joint. Whereas in the States, you might get an injection of your own stem cells of maybe 500,000 stem cells.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you're getting 25 million injected of fresh stem cells. You can also take it through a nebulizer where you breathe it in. So a lot of people, if they have lung issues like pulmonary fibrosis or any type of lung issues, you breathe the stem cells in. It flushes out the scar tissue in your lungs and the inflammation.
Yeah.
You can take it intravenously for like just health and longevity. You just take it directly into your bloodstream. People here, they're treating autism and dementia and various other disorders literally by injecting it straight into your brain. None of that stuff can be done in the U.S.
Got it. Yeah, it's crazy. So many breakthrough treatments coming around the pike, and it's people have great options.
The doctor I used, he's a friend of mine also, but the doctor I used, he treats like a lot of professional athletes in the States, NFL
Yeah.
players. He's got a lot of movie stars that come down to him, like very like high profile people come to his clinic
Yeah.
to get this stuff done, because they can't do it in the States. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it's revolutionary medicine that the U.S. is completely blocked as an option.
Yeah. Love it.
So anyway, as far as like recommendations,
Yeah.
I mean, you can literally improve your quality of life and dramatically cut your cost of living
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
By, like, for example, you get rid of your U.S. health insurance, which saves you hundreds or $1,000 a month in
Yeah.
premiums.
Yeah.
And you come live in a place where you've got great quality of health care at, you know, a fraction of a percent of what you pay in the U.S. Just have travel insurance that covers you for if you got any major medical events, like you break your hip or something while you're out,
Yeah.
you know, jet skiing or something. But, you know, otherwise just pay out of pocket. You cut your healthcare costs. Depending on where you go and what type of food you like, food quality is in a lot of countries is very good. Not everywhere, of course. I tend to only go places where the quality of food's really high, personally, because that is, you know, obviously a health
Right.
benefit to eat high
Right.
quality food. So I tend to not go places where the food's shitty, like Norway. I don't go to Norway. You got shitty food. It's not interesting for me.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, now
so,
the Norway Tourism Board can't use this video anymore.
Yeah. Well, fuck them. You know. Just kidding, Vikings. Just kidding. Don't kill me. But you know, it'll be a life-changing event if you just, you know, take the plunge. And a lot of people say, well, I can't really, you know, maybe after a few years I'll save up enough money and then maybe I'll go live 6 months in Mexico.
No.
See, to me, I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. Actually, it's literally cheaper for you to just buy the plane ticket and go now.
Yeah.
Like because you're going to cut your cost of living by half or even less just by being there. Now, presuming you have a location independent income stream,
Right.
you know, if you got to show up at the office every day, you might want to sort that out first. But if you've taken the first step from an income perspective to become location independent, the next step, the only other thing holding you back beyond that is your own fear. You know, and I have people say, oh, but I've got kids. I can't move till my kids are, you know, graduated high school. Well, you know what? That's just lazy, stupid thinking, to be honest. There's international schools in every medium to big size city everywhere in the world. Plus you can homeschool. And if you think about the international experience and the language applications your kids are going to learn, you know, if you're using your kids as an excuse to do it, you're just being lazy, because you're actually depriving them, you know, of an amazing experience where they could, you know, basically change their own lives as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just noticed, by the way, my battery is getting pretty low. It says I got 22 minutes left.
Okay.
I doubt that actually means 22 minutes. If we're going to continue much longer, I can certainly go back inside my apartment and plug in, or if we're going to wrap up soon, then I just want to let you know.
No, that's great. That's great. I was planning on wrapping up as soon as we finish this last part here. So, yeah, this has been awesome. You know, one of the reasons I'm not 100% sure about my audience is because this is the first of more talks that I want to do, and now I'm going to be sharing it to my YouTube channels, which is, you know, marketing and a few Facebook groups I'm in.
Sure.
Hopefully get some people drive into your business, and
yeah, cool.
And so yeah, it was awesome. Great to have you on. So just to recap, where's the best place for people to find you, and who should be finding you?
So our main website is globalwealthprotection.com. The page straight to our membership program, if you want to bypass the main site, is gwpinsiders.com. And the people that should be finding me are people that are location independent. Their income streams location independent. They're entrepreneurial, and they're really looking for internationalization strategies. They want to minimize their tax. They want to figure out ways they can structure their life to live in different countries and optimize certain things. You're looking for second residency, second passports, how to internationalize your business, how to do some offshore and foreign investments, that sort of thing. So those are the type of people I tend to work with.
Love it. Awesome, Bobby. Well, thanks for coming on. One thing I will say is, as personalized and as you know, I know you offer for your insiders, the 30-minute consultations, stuff like that. So despite all of our conversation about things needing to be personalized, I have a feeling that with this growing trend and how helpful you are, that you guys are going to figure out a way to make it a little more scalable. So anyone that's watching this, I would probably encourage you to reach out to Bobby while they still offer such a personalized approach, because maybe you plan to do it for the long term, but I have a feeling that you guys are going to blow up and figure out interesting ways to scale that isn't going to be so one-on-one. That's my guess.
I can tell you, well, we're launching our new company. We discussed this in email. We're launching the new company actually this month.
Yeah.
And so after about a month after we launch that, or maybe two, I'm going to continue to do the GWP Insiders with the personalized stuff.
Yeah.
But we're somewhere between, we're going to raise the price somewhere between 2 and 3 times the existing price.
Yeah.
Because I'm just going to push all of the people more towards the other business for some of the more, like, let's say, just technical stuff they need to get done, and we'll just eliminate some of the personalized service. So basically for the personalized service, once we get the new business launch later this month, I'm going to double or something between double and triple the price of the personalized service.
Yeah. And that 100% makes sense to me because I think it's a huge value. And, as we discussed, figured out from this conversation, it's like, yes, I'm, freelancing and kind of like figuring out my way and looking to build, but for someone like me, or for someone maybe who's a little bit farther along or a little bit farther, behind where I am, maybe having that other option for some of the more automated stuff will be great for them and great for you guys.
One of my business coaches has been harassing me for a while, saying that I'm way too cheap on my membership program. And I told him, I said, I'm keeping it cheap for now until we launch the new business. He thinks I shouldn't wait. He thinks I should have already done it a year ago. So
I was surprised when I saw it. So how's that for some urgency and scarcity? All right. So,
right on.
So there you go. Reach out to Bobby if you're interested in this stuff, and appreciate you coming on.
All right, cool. Thanks for having me. Take care.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
Cheers. Bye.